So yeah, then we get, there we go. Then we get into timing and distancing and shape and learning how to flow and transcend technique also lets you transcend attachments to space and time. You get those moments when you freeze up. You see something happening and you get stuck in that thing happening and you forget to go on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Right? So you block, oh, like that, and the mind freezes. But if you let go of the idea of technique and you realize that it's a constant thing.
Right. So part of it is, when you do really fast, I'm afraid that I'm going to really...
You're afraid you're going to hurt me.
I'm afraid I'm gonna hurt you.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a huge part of it. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why we do technique, is so we don't hurt each other. Yeah. So that you can get to that point, agree that you're going there, and then not hurt each other. If you break your training partner, you don't get another one.
Exactly.
In Tai Chi, one of the things that people notice is that, oh, we're learning techniques now, but the technique is not like the form, right? That you don't do the technique the way that you do the form. Why is that? And that's because the form is not just about technique, it's about being able to change.
And also, there's nobody else there.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, there's nobody else changing, putting input in. If you're doing this, it's just all you, right? There's nobody else there trying to kick you, punch you, gouge your eyes out, which kind of changes things.
Watch that you're not grabbing with the thumbs. Keep your thumbs on the same side of your fingers. Okay. Opposable thumbs are really the only thing that separate us from other animals. The important thing about opposable thumbs is that they're good because you can use them. The danger is in using them. Right? So just like any technique. Right? The good news is you have a technique that'll work. The danger is that if you try to do it, you can get hurt. Okay.
So, there. That's better, right?
That's better, yeah. So there.
Okay.
That's it. But then don't tense up, because then you start to interfere with the connection to the ground.
Okay.
Yeah. So there you go. So it's just relax. They're in. Basically, keep your. You're on safari. Keep your arms and legs inside the Jeep at all times.
Okay.
Okay. As soon as you see an arm out there, the lion goes, drumstick. We have horizontal circles. Okay. So when we teach push hands in the beginning, often what happens is we do this and people are thinking about the technique, about what they're doing. They'll say, oh, I'm pushing and you're neutralizing. So they think they're practicing a technique. And you can do that. You can practice it as a technique. But what's more important is that you're practicing method and structure so that there's no resistance. Okay. If you start practicing a technique, then you start adding resistance and effort and intent, and you get attached to the idea of even going in a circle. If you're attached to the idea of going in a circle, then when the other person resists, then you keep going because you're supposed to be going in a circle.
Right. And
people are practicing and forgetting what they're supposed to be doing. So now we do this. So this contains Pang, Liu, Ji, and An. So there's Pang, there's Liu, there's Ji, and An. So now you're doing Ji, which is cramming. Energy is in the inside of the forearm. Then you're doing An, energy is in the small of your back. And then you do Pang, the energy is in the outside of the forearm. And then Liu, and then I do Ji, An, and Pang. So as we do this, of course, if you're thinking too much about those energies, then you start forgetting that really what you're doing is sticking and following in a circle and maintaining that centripetal engagement. Okay, so if you get out there and you start to lose that centripetal engagement, and this happens, people start to do this. See how I have that distal pressure? There are schools in Tai Chi where people do the form as a technique. The movements of the form are practiced with a particular technique in mind. Most schools don't do that, but some do. Even the ones that do, however, they transcend the technique. And while you'll say, okay, we're learning this movement is this particular technique. So you're taking the one kind of pedagogy and superimposing it on another. And that's good because then people can practice the techniques on their own. They can practice the techniques at home when they don't have a training partner. They can imagine the training partner, and they can do the technique. I think the best example of that is probably Chen-style practical method. No. Okay, if you get a chance, if anybody gets a chance, you should learn. It's a brilliant way of understanding that aspect of the art. So normally when you do Chen-style Tai Chi, you're not thinking about a particular technique. Mm-hmm. Or if you are, you understand that there are an infinite number of possible techniques that could be within a particular movement. Mm-hmm. The same with any Tai Chi. So as I understand it, Chen Fa Ke, I had a student, Hong Jun Sheng. Chen Fa Ke's student said, well, what if we did the form the way we practice the techniques? And Chen said, that would be interesting. So Hong spent the next decade or two developing a way of doing the Chen style form that really demonstrated the technique, the way you would do it if you were practicing it as a technique. And it's very instructive. just even to spend some time looking at it, watching how it's done. And you'll start to become aware of principles and alignment that you probably ignored if you don't, especially because most people who do Tai Chi don't actually practice techniques. They never learn how to finish a fight. They're really good at push hands, but they can't, they don't know what to do at the end. Is it there? I made him move his feet. He's still alive. That's no good. So now you're getting smaller and smaller. Your circle's getting smaller as you get more pensive. So try to keep it big. Mm-hmm. Try to follow it to that full range there. That's it. So now there is a form where when you practice the form, you are doing the technique. And in doing so, you have a really good understanding of what makes the technique work, mm-hmm. and you learn more about the body mechanics than you might otherwise. I don't like saying practical method because it implies that all the others are impractical, but to a degree that's true, because there, see how you've gone backwards and your hand's still here? Why is that? Okay, that's not very practical. Mm-hmm. There we go. See how you're going away? You've lost that centripetal engagement. So you want to keep engaging me with your center. It has to come from the arm. It has to come out there. Okay, so at any point, I'm still pushing the earth. If you go back and leave your hand out there, and now you have that distal pressure, gotcha. So if you come forward and you keep that centripetal engagement, and you let it turn, you don't need resistance. Mm-hmm. You can still stay soft. Mm-hmm. Still stay soft. Mm-hmm. And keep engaging that way. So now when I move, I'm engaging you're already engaged with your center. But here, now you're not.
Right.
So if I can get you to do this, there you go. That's it. There. There. So that is not a technique. That is method. That's the difference. Right? Okay, so a technique would be, I'm going to block you and then punch you. Mm-hmm. But because you have better method, I can't block you. Or I can't deflect you. Because now I can. Now I've got you off balance. Right? So now I can get you because you're on that distal lane.
But, so let me understand this. When I'm coming around, mm-hmm. okay, so I still feel engaged, mm-hmm. and so when am I losing it?
There.
Okay, now I can feel that that's not engaged anymore.
Right.
So if I want to go, I wouldn't want to go further than this.
Right. Not like that. So in order to, if I want to keep going, you can make the circle bigger by keeping your right hip there where it is, mm-hmm. moving your left hip backwards, and you pivot, and that way you extend your arm farther without implying distal. Keep the weight on the front. Come forward more. Think about coming at me with your shoulder. Mm-hmm. There. So I come in like this. There's the pang. If I don't want to change that point of contact, I'm stuck. Mm-hmm. If I want to change the point of contact, I have to come here. So I come in with the elbow, with the shoulder. It has that potential.
Oh, okay.
And this is where method fails. Mm-hmm. Because if we think of technique, then you would use the other hand. Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. So from there, but we're not doing a technique. We're practicing a method. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Oh, okay.
Good. Now, from a technical point of view, I can counter this by doing this. Uh-huh. So if you were a normal human being, I would push this and your elbow would bend. Mm-hmm. But because you've been doing Tai Chi for so long, I do this, your elbow doesn't bend, instead it goes into the ground and I bounce off you.
Oh, I see. I want to be like that. Oh, okay.
There, and then there. And that just made the circle very, very small by having superior structure. There. And now you can do that, what you're doing, and pivot there, and that's just awesome structure, right? Or you can deal with it in case I have power. So don't, if the pressure builds up, if you start feeling the pressure build up, that's great if you always have centripetal structure. But the problem is when the power builds up, it gives me more opportunity to disrupt your structure.
Right. Okay.
So, that's why we say, I have atomic bomb, I only use pistol. So there, that's it, there. So to do this with extremely light pressure, okay, you want to be able to neutralize and engage this with incredible amounts of force involved. Doesn't matter how hard the other person is pushing, you can just hold that structure. So you're here, so there I can push you because you don't have the proper engagement. Right. Change the structure so that you have the proper engagement, turn that way. There, now, see that? So now you have that proper alignment, and if I push, I'm going to bounce off of it. Right. If you are doing this, then I've got you.
Okay. So I can understand. So the problem with too much, even if I'm holding it, the problem is I end up being locked in one place.
Right. Even if your structure is great, even if the structure is good and the alignment is good, as the pressure builds up, that potential happens. Right. So you will end up using your force against you. I won't.
Right.
Okay. So if you have that proper structure and alignment, then you're using my force against me. Right. But if you are using force, then you're using your own force against you. You're fighting yourself.
Right. Right.
It's almost the same thing.
For an instant, if in an instant you push, and for an instant I have that place, that's okay. In that instant. But
That's
I can't stay there.
Right. You can use power, but only as a way to get to softness again.
Got it.
Right. But then, that's why when people do a technique perfectly, there is no sensation of resistance at all. You do the technique because that's the way the person was going anyway.
Right.
And that's the best use of a technique. When you teach a technique so that you know that when the person is there, oh, if I just do this and this, there's no resistance and they go down. But if I try to make that happen, so if I'm going to do this throw, and you're not structured, you're rooted and connected against it, then I'm not going to do that throw, I'm going to do something else. So by having a big catalog of technique, I learned to recognize the options. Right. I can see there are 100 doors here, not just one. And you're trying to go through that one locked door, not realizing that there are 99 doors that are unlocked. Right. And there's one that's wide open. And you don't have to do anything, you just go through it. So having a bunch of techniques allows you to recognize those options. The push hands teaches you how to recognize which doors are open and which ones are not.
Right. So I knew a chiropractor, she was this big and this thin, and she was trying to adjust these great big guys, and she couldn't do it. And this older chiropractor said, the whole thing of it is in lining it up. The whole work is just getting the person into just the right position, and then you just go. That's all. It's not like
people who thought they were going to have to retire when they were 60 are now 70, 75, and they're still practicing because of the way that they've learned how to align and move. So here, if I start doing this, I'm stuck on a technique, and this is not going to work for me. And you don't even have to, you can worry less about the arm than you're worrying now. Just feel the connection, get that centripetal engagement. There you go. So now, see how much easier that is? You're still fighting me though. You can make it even easier. Think about the alignment to the, there you go, but no distal pressure. Think about absorbing it into your feet. There you go. Now, see that? Right. That's just mind-blowing. And that's where it feels magical, right? That's where I say, oh, I used my chi. Yeah, I didn't. It was Newtonian mechanics. But it's that ability to, there. Okay? So I can, if I try to push you with force, I'm going to collide with you. But if I find the open door, I can do that. Right. And that's not about changing the technique. That's about applying the method and understanding the structure. The technique is useful in the way that it teaches you the limits of technique. Okay? Otherwise, it only works against a right lunge punch.